Hi everyone, welcome to APA Citations Made Easy. My name is Anna Brenniger. I'm a librarian at the Fort Wayne campus. If you're not at the Fort Wayne campus, I can help you with your questions about citations or research. If you have any questions in the future, my email is right here. You're welcome to contact me and I can help you in areas of research, accessing materials from the library or from another library, but using citations and things of that like. So today we're going to talk about APA, of course, but specifically today is going to let me go. There we go. There we go. We're going to talk about when and why we cite in APA, the basic parts of what APA style looks like, the rules and the layouts of different things that are required in APA. We are also going to go over in-text citation, what that looks like, different ways to use that in your text and what's required, and some examples for that. And then we are going to look at lots of online tools or a few online tools that exist. There are a lot out there that exist, and I'm going to highlight a few. Just for housekeeping purposes, we will be recording this, and we will send you a copy when it gets processed. And you will also receive a copy through the email that you registered in of the slides. So you'll have the slides and a copy of the recording today. Okay? Great. All right, let's get started. First, I like to show this video in my citation sessions because it gives a good overview of why we cite. I like to know why I'm asked to do something before I want to do it. That's just the way I am. So this talks about why we cite, and I'm gonna go ahead and click for subtitles, and it's only about 2 minutes. We'll watch this.
At some point in your career as a student, you've probably had a teacher tell you to cite your sources while writing a research paper. But what is a citation, and why do we do it? Citation is the practice of identifying the sources you have quoted, paraphrased, or otherwise used in your writing, and it's pretty standard practice in academic writing. Citation serves several purposes. For one, it allows your reader to follow up on and to verify claims that you make in your writing, and it gives you the opportunity to acknowledge the people whose ideas you have used to advance your argument. Essentially, you are recognizing that your research and scholarship builds upon the work and the ideas of many others who came before you. The result is that citation helps readers see the connections between books and articles published by many different authors, as well as how they connect to your own ideas. There are many different styles of citation established by various academic and professional organizations. The most common styles, however, are MLA, APA, Chicago, and CSE. Most styles involve a two-part process. First, you acknowledge a source with a brief notation after you use it in the body of your paper. Then, you provide more detailed information about the source at the end of your paper in the works cited list or bibliography. This more detailed entry will include essential publication information about the source, including the title of the work, the author, and the date of publication, so that your readers can find it. Each citation style has a published guide outlining all the details of how to use it, and there are also many online tools to help. If you have any questions about citation as a practice or about a particular citation style, ask a librarian for help.
Okay. So just to go over what they mentioned, that we do cite because we're trying to avoid plagiarism, but it's more than just that. Oh, it's not gonna let me. There we go. It is about showing your work, showing all of the sources that you used in order to get to the argument that you made. It is also showing and crediting the people's ideas that you're adding on to. So you're a scholar and you're researching a subject, you're adding your own ideas and you're using their ideas to help form your own and support your own, okay? And if someone was wanting to research about a subject and found a paper that you wrote, they would be able to find more about that information, more about that subject through the resources, through the sources that we have. Okay, so we cite to show our work and to give credit to those that we use, ideas that we use. Okay, I also like to talk about, okay, there we go, why, when we should cite. Sometimes it can be a little confusing, so I just want to go over this chart to make it a little more clear, I hope. We cite essentially after we paraphrase or give a direct quote of something, right? So let's break it down a bit. We can follow this chart and go, is it a quote? Are we using a quote for something? Then yes, we should cite it, and we should also place quotation marks around it in the text, right? And we'll talk about in-text citation later on today, but that's what is called an in-text citation, when we're citing something in the text that right next to it. If it's not a quote, is it a paraphrase? Then yes. If it is, we also need to cite it, also with an in-text citation, and we'll show you how to do that as well. And then if it's not a quote or not a paraphrase, is it another idea, someone else's idea, or someone else's theory? If it is, then yes, you would cite it. So we're not just citing things that we quote directly or paraphrase, we're also citing ideas in general. So not just words, but ideas need to be cited, okay? If it's not any of those, a quote, a paraphrase, someone else's ideas or theory, it's most likely it is your own thoughts or it's common knowledge. And common knowledge does not need to be cited. So common knowledge is something like the California is on the Pacific time or on the West Coast. The peso is the currency of Mexico. Things that are widely known and agreed upon are common knowledge, right? And if they're your own ideas, of course, that does not need to be cited, right? So common knowledge and ideas, your own ideas do not need to be cited. Okay. As far as APA goes, APA is most often used with classes and the field of social sciences, business, nursing, healthcare, natural sciences, biology, etc. The scholars or the people who are in the APA organization came together to agree on a standard of the rules formatting of papers written in APA style, right? And so that's what we're going to talk about today, what standards they set. And it's in a hope, in theory, it's a hope that when you do use APA style, it makes it easier to read and easier to grade and easier also to find information about the thing that you're writing about, right? And that is why that we're asked to cite. So we also, in APA, with all these rules that we talk about today, please know that you don't have to memorize every single rule. It can feel overwhelming. I understand that. We won't go over every single instance of a specialty of this type of source or this type of source. We'll go over the general structure of what is required in APA and talk about different basics and common things that you'll see. Hopefully when you leave today, you'll be able to know the basics of what APA is and how you can start citing. So, but know that you don't have to memorize everything that I talked today about, because there are lots and lots of places online with answers for very specific questions on how to cite very specific things. Okay, so just a heads up. And as we go, if you have any questions, please put them in chat. Usually I have someone in there with me, but I'm alone today. So if you put a question in chat, I will stop throughout and try to answer those, okay? Okay. All right, so first let's start with one thing that APA sets a standard for, and that is the way your paper looks, like the pages, then the layout of your paper. We have here, in APA, we have a cover page, right? And that includes the information here. We have our title in the center, and then we have a couple spaces, and then we have information about you, the school, the course you're taking, the teacher, and then the due date, right? And then of course we have our page number at the top right. And this is its own separate page. It comes before the body of your paper. It'll be the first thing that you see or your teacher sees when you turn it in. And we do have a template for this, and it will be connected to the slides. It'll be just a blank template there you can fill in the information that is associated with your paper. Okay, but this is what a cover page looks like in APA. And there's also you repeat the title again at the top of the second page, and then you also carry over the page numbers throughout the entire paper. Okay. And from here, I just want to highlight a couple things about the formatting. One is that there is an indent in the first line and that everything is double spaced, right? Just easier to read. Sometimes you might need or being asked to use headings, right? And this is just an example of headings and where they would go. So headings such as like introduction, literature review, background, discussion, conclusion. It'll really depend on your paper and what your instructor is wanting you to do. But this is kind of an example of what that would look like, right? So we have our main heading at the top here in the middle. And then we have, if we need to break that heading down into smaller chunks, we can do that by putting a heading on the left side here, right? So a main heading and then the subheading, if that is something that you are asked to do by your instructor, okay? And we also, as we continue, we always have our page numbers, okay? And then the final example of the outline today that I'm going to show is our references page. So this is the very last page of your paper. It's its own separate page. It isn't connected to anything else. It's just its own little page hanging out at the end. And it also has the page number right here. Okay. And our references is what I will talk about today as far as citation. When I say the reference page citation, this is what I mean, right? This will show all of the sources that you have referenced in your paper, everything that you cite in your paper. It needs to go as a reference at the end of this page right here. Okay, so we have our references word title in the middle, and then we are double spaced again. The one thing I want to highlight is this indent that starts on the second line of every reference. So as we can see that there's some spaces here. The second line indent helps us visually see when the citations start and stop, right? So we can see that these two lines go with this citation, and then another one starts when it goes to the left side. Just a visual to show when things stop and start with citation. And everything, this is another important thing, everything is in alphabetical order by the last name of the author or the first bit of information in the reference page, okay? So as we can see, Achtenberg, and then because, this doesn't have an author, it has a corporate author, that's fine. It still comes in alphabetical order with American Psychological Association. So A, B, and C, so on. Let's see, okay. So every citation answers 4 questions of the source that you're using. Who is the author, or who is responsible for the work, right? Or the author. When was the work published, which is the date? What is the work called, which is the title of the source? And where can I find this work, which is the source itself, where you found it, the journal, the book, newspaper, etc. So we're going to answer these 4 questions in every citation that we do at our reference page, right? These citations answer each of these questions. Okay, and when we are using in-text citation, we'll say we're writing or paraphrasing about a source, and then we have our citation after. If a person is reading our paper and they are interested in learning more about this idea that we've cited, they can use our citation to then go down to the reference section and find the source that we are referring to, right? And that's in the simplest terms of why we cite. So every time we have an in-text citation, we need to have a full reference in the references section, references page. Okay. The basic parts of the APA reference list are all of those answers to the questions that we had before. Who wrote it, the author, when was it written, the date, and then what it's called and where we found it. So this is the order of the basic APA reference list entry. So it's author, date, title, and source. And just a note on organization of it, everything ends with a period after, and then the date is in parentheses. Okay, this is the very basic references list entry. So what does that look like with real examples? So I have some examples here of common sources that you might use in papers. You look for, I hope that you're able to see how this is color coded by green is the author, yellow is the date, blue is the title, and pink is the source. So I'm just trying to show you the different elements in the different types of sources. I know a lot of different examples exist out there of different types of sources, and I'll show you where to find more examples of this, but I just want to break down a couple of things about the reference citations to look at. When you are doing the name or the author's name, make sure that you put the last name first and then a comma and then their initials. So Spolowski, comma R, and then they have a second initial. That's great. M, if not, that's okay. So their first name is just an initial. Okay. The same thing if there are multiple authors, you would just add them with their last name and then the initial of their first name or second if they have a second initial name. And then we also include an and in them after if there are more than two. Okay. Another thing about the sources themselves is our title. The title is in title case, which just means that the first word is capitalized as well as any proper nouns, right? Or sorry, this is a sentence case. I apologize. This is a sentence case. So just like you're writing a sentence in your paper, you would write the title, right? So the first word is capitalized and then any proper nouns are also capitalized, such as United States, right? It's capitalized. Okay. And again, a period is after each element of the source. Okay. Just want to go and zoom in on journal articles for a second of what the different types or elements of the sources are asked for, right? In the source of a journal, it's asking for all the information that you would need to find that article. And that includes the title of the journal, some of the volume and the issue, the pages, and then the URL. Way before the internet and even still now, academic journals were printed just like a magazine or a newspaper was printed. They were printed regularly. And so in order to find that information, they also included issues and page numbers. So all of that just refers back to when they were printed or every journal was printed, right? So that's why we are asked to include these. It continues on today, even if they aren't printed, they're still a volume, an issue, and page numbers in journals. So that is all of that information here that we would need to find the source. Okay. Okay. As far as in-text citations go, in-text are what we use, again, to cite a source that we are either paraphrasing, quoting, or using their theories or ideas for. And every time we do that, we include an in-text citation. And in general, that format will be inside parentheses. And the author, comma, year is the format, the general format. So we're just saying which source we used and where it can be found and what year it's from. You can do that a couple ways. The first is inside parentheses together, just like this, Jones, comma, 2023. This would be at the end of your paraphrase or the end of a quote, right? You could keep it all together. You can also, inside your text, mention the author. And if you mention the author, you can just include in parentheses the date. So that's only two things you need when you're paraphrasing is the author and the date, okay? So what does that look like? It looks like this. So these are some examples of when you're paraphrasing and ways to cite. You could say something like in his or her or their article, and then put the author, concluded that, wrote that, mentioned that, and then the paraphrase of the source. And then you still need to include the year, right? You included the author's name, you still need to include the year. Okay, so you can separate those two elements out, but they both need to be included. So, and then you can also say something like according to the authors right here, and then you can just put the year right after, or you could put the year at the end, just like above. You can move those around if you take out the author and mention them in the text. Just be sure to include the year. Okay. So another one is that you could just put the author and the year together at the end after your paraphrase. Right? Okay. So when you're quoting something, they asked you to include the page number, right? And this comes immediately after a source is quoted, and it can do it a couple different ways. First is most common and easy is putting the citation directly after the quote. As we can see here, the quotations are on this side of the citation, on the left side of the citation, and then the period is after. That is a kind of a little bit of a formatting thing. But we also have the option to talk about the author in the text and include the year, and then also include the page number in different places, right? But it's really easy to write a quote and put author, year, and page. I think that's the simplest way to put a citation after a direct quote, is this one up here, okay? All right. So I know that there's probably you've come across in your work, in your research, and in your writing, different rules that are applied to APA, and I just want to go over some different things that might come up with the different types of sources that you have, okay? So if you have two authors, you would put an ampersand or an and symbol in between the author's last names. This is for in-text citation. And then you would also include the year, right? So we're still talking about in-text citation. If we're having three or more authors, we would use the first author that's listed, and then et al, and that stands for and others, and that just is to abbreviate that other people wrote with Williams, but we don't have room to put all of these authors because there's three or more of them. So Williams et al, and then the year 2023. So et al takes the place of the rest of the authors. And then if we have a source from different authors, but they have the same last name, you also include their first initials. That helps just differentiate between the two authors with a similar last name. If you have a missing page number or don't have a page number, you can include something that does exist, such as a paragraph number or a section number, right? That's another way to show where you found that quote if a page number does not exist. Right? You can also include multiple sources into one paragraph. If you want to talk about how multiple studies or multiple researchers discuss this idea, you can include that with a semicolon dividing the two citations. So we have Derwin et al. Is the first citation, and then a semicolon, and then Thomas, comma, the year is our second citation. So when we were writing our sentence, where a few researchers in the linguistics fields has, and then we discuss what they've researched, right? And then we can put them together with a semicolon. And then we have, sorry about that, we have secondary sources, which are a source cited within another source. What we have to do for that is to write as cited by the source that we're using. If you have questions about this, I'd be happy to show you specifically. I added this because it's a common question that we get with our APA examples. So if anyone does want me to click on that, I can show you exactly what I mean by that. But a source that's cited in another source, you would need to mention that it is as cited in, and then the source that you are using and the original source that's being cited. Okay, it's a bit confusing, but I added it because there have been questions about it. Okay. One more page about exceptions and things that can come up. If information is missing about your source, that's okay. There's different ways to still cite it, right? So we have our standard format here, author, year, title, source for our citation reference page, and our in-text, right? Author and year. Say we don't have an author, the title would be the first thing that you would put in that citation for both the reference page as well as the in-text. You would put a shortened title as a citation and the year. If we don't have a date, we include the phrase or the letters N dot D dot right here, and that stands for no date. It's just a placeholder to say, I know that there's a date that you want here, but there's no date. So that is why we have N dot D dot, right? So author N dot D dot if there's not a date, and then title, source, or in our in-text, we can include N dot D dot as well. If there's not an author, we can use a description of the source, or sorry, if there's not a title, we can use a description of the source if we need to. And then another one that might come up is, let's see, again, it just takes the different things that are missing and shows you what to put as the first element. And it's usually the title or description of the title that you would need to put first, okay? But I believe these are the three most common that you might come across, but you're welcome to use this as a reference for future citations. And I have one more page before we get to our review section. We have some great guides that exist on the internet, some places that you can find great answers for all the APA questions you might have. The first one I want to highlight is the APA Style website. It is the official website of APA Style, and I'm going to hopefully open this. It will have a lot of information about paper formatting, mechanics of style, languages, as well as breaking down in-text citations and different ways to write them. The references section here will give you a list of different types of references and how to cite them. And also, if you are interested in learning about language or grammar, they also have great suggestions on those things as well. So APA Style, and I like to go to either references or in-text citations to get those examples. the references, it will break it down to lots of different information. I like to find reference examples here, and that will give you the different types of source. Say it's a text work, an audio visual. I'm going to click audio visual, and then it gives me an even bigger list. Maybe it's a podcast, and it shows you how to cite a podcast, right? Super helpful. I'd highly suggest checking out this page, and I will link it. I will link it in chat. Okay, another guide that I want to highlight is the library's citation guide. And to find that, our website here on the front page, we have citing sources button in the middle. And this will take you to our citations page. Okay, it has a guide for APA, MLA, and a couple of notes on Chicago, which is less common at Ivy Tech. But if you choose APA from the menu here, it has even more links to helpful guides. And it also has our template that I showed earlier, that I was referencing earlier. This will open up into Word. Hopefully you'll be able to show it on the screen. It is a template that you can just pop in information about your name, your title of your page, etc. And then it starts the format for you. It double spaces everything, sets it up so that it's the correct size of font, etc. And then it also gives reference examples here. That is found on the APA menu. And we also have citation examples underneath, and those will break down the different types of sources again by books, articles, websites, personal communication, etc. And it will show an example of an in-text citation, and it will also show an example of a reference page citation. And we have both the format that you would use and follow, as well as a real-life example below it. And that is true for each of these different types of sources. And more specifically, the type of source, but maybe if it's just a chapter or an ebook or a website with no author or a website with no date, it gives you that information on how to cite it. Okay. I will share that in the chat as well. We also have a great let's see if it's going to let me sign in. We have a service or a website that we subscribe to through Ivy Tech that gives students free access. It's called Noodle Tools. It is a way to keep track of your citations, and you can, we click on show you. Hopefully this will open. I have my list of citations here. If I want to add a new one, I can go to new source, can choose which type of source it is and what exactly it is. Maybe it's a journal. And then we can fill in the different elements that we have of our source, and it will create automatically. Let me go back. It'll create our citation for us and list it here. With this page, we can do a number of things. We can take notes, can export it, add attachments, lots of different things. I don't have time to go into detail about this right now, but it also, you can export a Word document that has your references page on it. So it will make a reference page for you automatically. Hopefully it'll pop up. Yeah, so here we have our references page made through Noodle Tools. And that is linked on our citation guide, as well as on the front page of the library's website. It is right under citing sources right here. Okay. Okay. before we go to lecture knowledge, I just want to see if there's any questions in the chat. Sorry if I've just been moving ahead. I'm sorry if I've missed your questions. So bullet points are acceptable or not in APA format. So is it bullet points instead of sentences or instead of text? I guess I would go with, this is what I would do. I would go with whatever your instructor tells you is that I want the format to be, right? I think for the most part, APA would just be written in regular sentences. Maybe there's a need for it under different sections. But I would go with what your instructor is telling you to do. We can, if you'd like, we can look and see once we get through this review if the APA style has anything about bullet points. But let me get through this review first, and then I'll go back and double check that for you. Is that okay? There's, sure. Okay, is there any other questions? If you do have questions, please pop them in chat and I will pause. Again, I feel like I needed to look at sooner. I'm sorry about that. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna show what we've learned today by a little review. If you want in chat, please put your answers. What is missing from this full citation source? So we have our source here, this website article from NPR, and this is our citation. What is missing from it? Yes, exactly. It's the date. We have a date, right? September 21st, 2023, and it would go right after the author's name, right? Yeah, exactly. Author, date, title, source. I wish it rhymed, but that's how I like to remember it. What is the correct way to cite this source in the text? So this is a source with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, more than 5, more than 7 authors. How would we cite that in text citation? Yeah, it's C with et al. So DeVito is the first one listed. So he or she gets the first opportunity to be in the in-text citation, and then et al. And then the year. Good job, guys. APA style, the list of citations on your references page should be in order by what? Chronological by the date of publication, alphabetical by the author's last name, alphabetical by title, no particular order, just however you want. It is B, it's by alphabetical by the author's last name. That's okay, yeah. If it's not, again, if we had all those exceptions, it's the first bit of information that's present in your citation, okay? And that's usually the author. All right, what is missing from this citation? We have our citation here, and our source is here, excuse me, and our citation is here. So we have our author, we have our date, and we have information about the source. The journal article is next. So we would need his information about the title of the source. Yeah, the title of the source. So the title of the article is called Folklore, Fakelore, History. The title or the name of the journal is called Food, Culture, and Society. It's a little hard one, but just be aware that we need both the name of the title or the name of the article, right? That has its own title. And then if it's in a journal, we also need the journal's name that information goes last with the rest of the source information. Okay. One more. What is the basic order for APA reference list entries? Author, date, title, source, title, author, source, date, author, source, date, title. I hope I'm not confusing with all these different ways. Yeah, A, you got it. It's author, date, title, source, right? Awesome. If you don't remember anything else, just know that that is the order of references, reference list entries. Okay. Okay. Well, I guess I have one more. Let me double check before I say that. Yes, one more. What is the correct way to cite both sources in the same paragraph? We're doing end-text citation again. We want to cite and mention both Eliot T and Seidel J. How would we do that? Yeah, it is B. It is a semicolon in between the two sources. Good job, everyone. Okay, that is everything for that. So thank you for playing along with the review. I hope that was helpful. If there are any questions that anyone has, I'm going to answer the bullet point one in a second. We'll look that, but before we stop recording and I answer that, is there any questions that I can answer for you? You can unmute if you need to. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording and